Hello. We are going to discuss in this session about project procurement process and process-related considerations. In this picture, you have the project procurement process. And it starts from identifying a possibility to procure something, making an investment decision, then packaging, probably what to procure, what kind of packages to procure, what is the project or sub-project that we want to procure, and then opening the competitive bidding. So the request for bid for the contractors is essential. Then we are receiving bids and we are comparing them. We are analyzing, we are choosing few suppliers, we are negotiating with them, and then we end up to signing a contract, ordering a project or a sub-project from one supplier, and then supervising the project delivery and then accepting in the end the delivery. Or actually the delivery is optimally accepted in certain parts, certain chunks, but that is part of the contract that must be signed that we can really follow up how the delivery progresses, and it will complete part by part. Well, if we look at this project procurement process, I would say that in the very beginning, there are parts where the customer, the buyer, must be very active. Of course, it is the customer's interest to know what to procure and from whom to procure. But also the activeness means that the customer must enhance competition and make the contractors interested to deliver and to collaborate with the customer. So we don't need necessarily a contractor that doesn't have so much business interests with us. So it requires a little bit activeness to even call the potential contractors that we desire to have to compete with each others and ask whether they are going to bid, whether they are interested to bid. And in this way, to activate the competition and their will to start doing business with us. Then, when we are sending out requests for bids to contractors, then it is the contractor's period of contractor's turn to be active in that period. So contractors should contact the customer, ask about various things that they are interested about. And of course, the customer must actively then respond to a contractor. But there are certain specific rules also how to behave in this phase. If one contractor is provided with certain information, it is very fair to provide all other potential bidders, potential contractors, the same information, to have them have equal possibilities. Also, it is very bad behavior to start favoring certain contractor and, for example, always try to, if there is a bidding competition situation, to favor certain contractor and more or less select this contractor's services and ignore others. So this kind of a behavior would be penalized in a way in the market, so that there would not be any more interested contractors to come into bidding competition and to start working or collaborating with this kind of a firm that doesn't act fairly as a buyer or customer. Also, when it comes to the project delivery phase and supervising the project delivery, it is very important to include in the contract certain terms that give us as a customer rights to supervise the delivery and even go to the contractors' factories or sites and see that the delivery is really progressing. So of course we are requiring reporting from the contractors, but also we must have actively connection with them and see with our own eyes how things are going on. Well, the bidding process has 3 phases. First, there is a qualification of potential suppliers, and this is rather important, that who do we want to do business with and who are the qualified and good enough suppliers that we are sending out our request for bid. Then we might ask the budgetary quotation, which is not legally or commercially binding. So there would be price and some preliminary information about what the contractor is going to bid. And then finally request for bid. And then we receive the binding bid, and there is a possibility for us to make a contract based on that. Many times that bid is negotiated and adjusted, so the customer doesn't necessarily need to accept the bid as it is, but if the bid is fine as such, so it is just to order without the negotiations, and then it's kind of a juridically binding thing if we order according to how the contractor bid it, or what the contractor bid it to us. Okay, as I said, who to work with, who to collaborate with is very important. And here we have few points about the evaluation of the suppliers. Is the supplier a suitable party for us? So is there strategic fit competencies? And are the required resources really available for us if the supplier comes to be awarded for the contract? So does the supplier reserve good enough or best resources from its organization to us? Or does the supplier favor potentially some other customers and give the best resources to some other customers, for example? Is the subcontractor or supplier interested in collaboration with us? So are we really an interested party for that company? Or is it just vice versa, that we are interested about that supplier? So it should be both ways. The symmetrical situation is a good thing, that there is really a will both ways to do business together. Is the subcontractor somehow different positively from other bidders? And are there some relationship issues, for example, the subcontractor being connected to our own customer, where there would be a kind of a interesting type of a sandwich effect, where our subcontractor would discuss directly with our customer, for example, which is not that desired thing. And what is really important is that can the subcontractor ensure continuity? So is that subcontractor a well-resourced organization, and can it provide services for the system that it has delivered us later on? And are there enough resources that give maintenance or support to this mission-critical thing that we are going to buy from that subcontractor? Now, what does the request for bid include? Here are three things as kind of a table of in the table of contents of the request of bid. So first, the general part. So introduction to the bid and description of the target, what is to be achieved with the bid. So description of responsibilities of the subcontractor to deliver the sub-project, and the description of the customer. The content-related requirements and reporting requirements, rights of the subcontractor, rights of the customer, general contractor terms. These are part of the general item in the table of contents of the request for bid. So then the second item, big item, is the commercial part of the request for bid, and there is the contract type, suggestions for payment terms, possible penalties and bonuses, and as I told many times, the incentive type of contracts might be really great, where both parties win if a performance is well. And then guarantee terms, warranties and securities. So that was the commercial part. And then there is the technical description of the bid. So technical specification, if they exist, and how much. There are technical specifications, so specs for the work being procured, designs, estimate of the number and timing of components or work parts and work packages, pricing information and detailed schedule. So when it is expected to be delivered. So these were the technical part or technical description of the project. Well, then I'm going to walk through a little bit also with you about the typical criteria that the customer often uses for selecting the supplier. So there are 4 criteria. First, price-benefit ratio. For example, the customer might be really interested about the cost of maintenance and other life cycle costs of that system that is to be delivered. The system often is very mission critical to the customer, and therefore the life cycle of the system is of interest. So not only the benefits of being able to buy a cheap system, but also of operating it in an appropriate way and with good performance, maybe in a cheap way also. So then the second criterion is the credibility of the project supplier. The supplier's experience counts, references of who the supplier has been delivered and what earlier, annual sales revenue and financial standing of the supplier. Is the supplier really commercially, or is the supplier's business well off? And then, of course, part of the credibility would be the guarantee period and the support for operations that the supplier promises for the customer. So then, third criterion, technical solutions. There are possibly risks associated with the technical solutions, what they are, how long are the systems and system parts supported by the supplier, and is there a development potential? If we buy from this supplier, does the supplier develop its system also with other customers, so that we get updates and modernizations for the system, so that we really can see that there is a path of development? On the other hand, it might be that some suppliers would like to even deliver us as a customer a very cheap system, but then it might be that the supplier's interest would be to use us as customers as a kind of a development platform for that system, and that might not always be the desire of the customer of putting efforts on helping the supplier to develop its systems. Then fourth criteria is project execution. How much involvement is required from us? What is the requirement for the customer? I already explained that it is not always desirable that we should put so much effort, but it sometimes is better if the supplier develops also its systems with other customers and just provides us the good ever-developing solution. So delivery time is one thing that relates to project execution, and sufficiency of resources named by the supplier and their competencies. I mean, many times this is so capability intensive, these kinds of projects and project deliveries, that the supplier often offers the customer the CVs of the persons that they are going to put on the job to guarantee the capability for the sub-project delivery. On the other hand, on the other side, there might be that some suppliers might just put junior people there to work for the customer and to learn, and that is again not necessarily the desired situation by the customer. Well, thank you very much. That was all this time. See you again in another session. Thanks. Bye.